I've got here something I want to show you, and we want to test this today as well. It is a Grid-Tie Micro Inverter with 4 integrated MPPTs. And by the way, this is the 2000 watt version I have. I bought this here a while back and I have never used it actually so far. Warranty card, jeez, all this stuff, cabling. So here are the specifications of this Grid-Tie Micro Inverter, 2000 watts, 2.2 kilowatts max, MPPT voltage range 25 to 55 volts. DC current is 12.5 amps maximum times 4, because we've got 4 separate inputs here for solar panels. Maximum input power is 600 watts and the DC short current is 16 amps per MPPT. So we can operate this from 20 to 60 volts DC, and the output obviously is 230 volts, 184 to 265, and the frequency is 50 or 60 hertz. Efficiency 96.5, MPPT efficiency 99, waterproof IP67, class 1, and apparently it has all the safety certifications. It is made from Mars Rock Tech, made in China. The inverter was around, I think it was around $600, $400, $500, $600. I put this here on the screen. It wasn't cheap. It wasn't cheap. Yeah, and the other side is just a massive heatsink. You can see the MC4 connectors here on all 4 corners. And we also have a Wi-Fi antenna here, because the inverter connects to a portal where we can read all 4 MPPTs individually. And I want to test this inverter today. We will do a rough setup behind the pool on the other side, plug it into our microgrid, to our off-grid system, and see what happens. But guys, first of all, welcome back to the off-grid garage here in freezing cold Australia. We had 6 degrees last night or something. It is freezing cold. But you can see this is our typical winter weather here. It is blue sky everywhere. And we are exactly 5 weeks away from our winter solstice here in Australia, which is your summer solstice actually. So in 5 weeks time, your sun will go down already again. Isn't that crazy? Wasn't that just before Christmas when we had our peak time here in Australia? And now we are already that close to the lowest, to the shortest day ever. Anyway, I guess this is just how it is. And it makes this solar technology so much more interesting. Especially when you have these large trees behind your garage, which blocking most of the sun during winter. You can see the sun will only come over there. This is the smallest gap we get, so we will have a very short peak at around 12 p.m. and that's basically it then. But I'll do a separate video soon and show you how the overall solar production here and battery usage is for the last couple of months. But today we want to focus on this micro inverter and see how it works. It can also be the user manual. So you can also daisy chain these micro inverters, of course. You've got these cables and plugs on each side. One is the input, the other one is the output. And I'm not 100% sure, I haven't read the manual yet, how many you can actually parallel. I'm not sure if there's actually a limit or not. And this all needs to be connected to a power point, which is then connected to a distribution box and safety switch, and then to your meter, and then it goes out in the grid. But this is not what we are going to do today, because we don't have a grid anymore here, right? We only have a microgrid. I assume it will just work. It will just push the power from the solar panel into our microgrid. But the most interesting question is, what happens if you produce more power with this microinverter than you actually use? Okay, let's find out soon. But first of all, let's do the setup. A stupid idea to put the camera up there. I need to go back and get the camera and put it in another position and walk towards the camera and pick it up again. It's just, everything takes 3 times longer than without camera, but it's far more fun. So I guess we're putting up the panel here. The sun is still behind the trees, but it will come above this tree line here. and we will have sun until like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon for a couple of hours, full power. I'll leave the panel here. This is the I want to show you. This is the BLD solar, one of the good panels we have, 250 watts, 8 amps, 30.4 volts in the maximum power point. So it is well within the specs, but unfortunately I cannot use 2 of them. Even we stay within the 600 watts then, but the current would be 16 amps in the maximum power point, which is far more than the 12.5 the inverter can do. And I'm not sure at this point if it just limits the power then, or if it goes kaput. We don't know. So we've got power to our microgrid over there for the pool. We can just plug in the cable into a power point there, and it feeds in the power backwards into our system. But then the interesting question is, if we turn off the pool pump and have no load connected to this circuit anymore, what happens with this power? Right? It goes back to the inverter. We have to tell the inverter there is another AC source which produces power in the system. So we do this all later. We set everything up. We've got another hour time anyway to prepare all this in the inverter, and then we start our testing here. Eventually, if this all works out, if this works well, if we can make this work, I have permission from my local government inside the house, from my wife, to put more solar panels here on this flat section of the roof where this little pipe thingy is there, so all the way back, and then I can just run a cable over the gutter and here along to this fence in a conduit back and plug it in directly to one of the power points here in the switchboard. And this would mean we would have already sun now until around 4 o'clock. So that would be perfect. Okay, so while we are waiting for the sun to come around this corner over there behind the pool, I have downloaded the configuration file of the Multiplus already onto the computer. So because I have just done a firmware update on the Multiplus, all the configuration has been reset to factory default. Unfortunately, every time you do an update, a software firmware update, the Multiplus resets to factory default. So, okay, these are the default settings anyway. Grid is none. This is our inverter setting in regards to the battery. So we are shutting down at 37.2 volts. We are restarting at 43.6 volts. And there's also an alarm on 43.6 volts. You can also configure a shutdown on state of charge, which it then gets from the smart shunt. So here with these settings, I actually keep the inverter running until all 3 BMSs in the battery shelf have shut down. And now here comes something we need to enable now. We need to enable the charger of the Multiplus so we can actually dump excess energy from our grid inverter if there's not enough load in our system. So let's see, battery type. Yep, we have a lithium iron phosphate battery. We can click on OK. And this sets the following settings: absorption voltage 56.8. Float at 54, absorption time for 1 hour, and the Multiplus will also turn off our inverter at 95% state of charge. Yep, more about this later. So for the moment, I leave these settings as they are. Okay, in the next tab, we are not using any virtual switches at the moment. And now here comes the most important part. We need to install an assistant. This is like a software add-on for the Multiplus to tell it what to do when we have another inverter on the output. So usually you would use the ESS, the Energy Storage System Assistant, but you use this only if you are connected to the grid and when excess power can be exported to the grid from the second inverter connected to the output of the Multiplus. But in this case, we need to connect the PV inverter support. Okay, and we start the assistant. And it says here, a multi-inverter can be used in conjunction with a grid-connected solar converter, a PV inverter. And yes, we are making an island system. No, we don't have a VE bus BMS. And these are the frequencies set by the Multiplus then once the battery gets full to 90–95%. So the connected Grid-Tie inverter will already throttle down when the frequency goes to 50.2 Hertz. And then here the output power will be reduced to a minimum when the frequency is 52.7, and the converter will disconnect when the frequency is higher than 53 Hertz. So obviously you need to set these parameters here accordingly to what kind of inverter you have connected to your system. With this micro inverter situation, I don't know. I leave this all as it is, and we have to see what's going on then. And honestly, maybe it is not even working with this micro inverter at all. Because as we have seen in the specifications here, it says we have an extended frequency range from 45 to 55 Hertz. So this would mean the inverter just adapts to the frequency change the Multiplus puts on our microgrid. And in this case, the microinverter will not turn off at all. And then we would have a situation when we totally overcharge our batteries until all three BMSs would shut down because one of the cells has hit 3.65 volts. And then in this case, it will also disconnect the Multiplus and our microgrid will disappear and the grid-tie inverter will turn off as well. But this is just a theory. Okay, so the inverter power is 2000 watts and our panel is only 250 watts at the moment, but we set this already here to 500, maybe 500 watts. So here's the exception how far you can actually do that. There is the so-called factor 1.0 rule. That means we can only connect as much solar on the AC side of the Multiplus as the Multiplus can output in power. That sounds confusing, but the rule is very easy. We have a 5 kVA Multiplus, so we can have a maximum of 5 kilowatt of solar panels connected on the output of the Multiplus. So it will actually be able to handle 5 kilowatt of solar and push this back into our battery if there's not enough load on our microgrid. So that's why it is called 1.0 rule. It needs to be 1-to-1. If you have a 3 kVA Multiplus, you can only connect 3 kilowatt of solar panels. So, but this inverter is only a 2 kilowatt inverter and we've got a 5 kVA Multiplus. So everything is good. We don't need to do anything further. All right. And this is pretty much everything we have to set up in the assistant for the PV inverter support. And I think we don't need any further assistant at the moment. Okay, quick summary again here of this PV inverter support assistant. So once the battery gets to 95% state of charge, we are increasing the frequency on the output of the Multiplus. And therefore our grid-tie inverter should throttle down and turn off eventually. We've got a 2000 watt inverter and 500 watts of panel, so I will get a second panel later on. Okay, we click OK. We get out of here. Yes, save this file. And we can now go into our remote VE configure. I'm uploading this file again. Select file. Select our file we have just configured. Open. And this one is now uploading. And then the Multiplus will restart again. And then our assistant is active in the system. And we can continue our test. Okay, you can see all lights flashing. Here it comes back. All right. So now we are configured to accept AC input on the AC output of the Multiplus. So, and here's how it works. This is our Multiplus. It has an AC in and an AC out. And we have used the AC in with our second inverter before, using it as a generator to increase the overall output of the Multiplus. The AC out goes then to a distribution panel with several RCBOs. So these are all your load circuits for EV charging, the light circuit, and one of them is the pool circuit. So this cable goes all the way underground to the pool, runs the pool pump, and also connects to our micro inverter, which has one solar panel connected. So whatever power this one here generates will be sucked away from the pool pump first. But if I turn off the pool pump, there's no load on this circuit anymore, right? And these 250 watts need to go somewhere. So the microinverter will actually feed this one back into our distribution panel through the pool fence RCBO and then back into the Multiplus, because it is a grid-tie inverter. It wants to feed energy back into the grid as much as possible coming from this solar panel. And because we don't have any grid connection here, but we have our battery bank connected, the Multiplus then redirects this energy coming backwards into the battery. And then once we hit the 95% state of charge here in the battery, it increases the frequency on this output. The micro inverter hopefully reacts to this increase of frequency and shuts down our solar automatically. Once the battery goes down, the frequency goes down from 53 to 50 Hertz again. The micro inverter starts producing power and the same shit happens again. And so far, the only officially supported inverter which can do this is the Fronius, which I have recently installed at my house solar. And this was the main reason to go with the Fronius inverter, because it is the only supported inverter for off-grid installations with the Victron system. I know other inverters work as well, the SMA works, and you leave your comments down below, whatever inverter you have, and it works with the Victron system and the frequency shifting. So maybe we can give other people an option what kind of inverter they can use in combination with the Victron system in an off-grid situation then. Oh wow, I just found the warranty card in this box, or the inverter. And it says it comes with a 3 years warranty. It's not too bad actually. Has the serial number sticker in here. Not too bad. Considering it has Wi-Fi, it connects to this app where you can sign up for free. Gives you all the information, all the data, all the statistics. Even the app is not the best, but it gives you some information. I'm not sure at this point if there's an API to Home Assistant, but I'll find out. So looking at the current situation here in the off-grid garage, we are at 14% state of charge. We are charging with 1.9 kilowatts from our garage DC charging, that is, going directly into the battery. And we have only a load of 44 watts on the AC output of the inverter. Whoa, look at this. That is perfect. And by the way, Ivan from Perth, thank you so much for sending over a carton of spat. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Okay guys, let me walk you through the setup here. I've got a second solar panel already here, not connected yet. I've got one solar panel connected to the inverter, and we follow the AC cable all the way to here. I've got an energy meter in between, so we can see actually the watts going into our microgrid. This one is an RCD, still turned off, so no connection yet. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are on. 229 volts. Jeez, you can't see shit with this camera here on this display. Okay, we can now see, well, at least I can see 131 watts being produced and pushed into the grid, into our microgrid. Why is this shit not working? This is 131 watts, and the light is still flashing red. It's supposed to be flashing blue once it's connected, but it doesn't. But the actual inverter is working. So here I've also logged into the, what is it called, Solar Man. This is the app coming with the inverter. Well, it took me quite a while to set this all up here now, but it's also showing 118 watts. So obviously we are actually producing power and pushing this into the grid. What I found here, I'll show you. Under devices, logger, here you can see the data uploading period is sits on 5 minutes, right? On 5 minutes. How can they call this real time when it only uploads every 5 minutes? And I'm unable to change this. It's a hardwired thing. It's a hardwired setting in the data logger. So every 5 minutes we're getting data here, which is a bit shit. So this is not really real time here. This is just a 5 minute average or something. I found something else under micro inverter. If we go into this inverter, this shows us the solar panel, 22 volts. and 5.3 amps we are getting. It's 116 watts. So this is in line what we actually measure on the AC side as well. Here. Protection parameters. Look at this. Over frequency and load reduction starting point 50.2 hertz. Huh? Yeah, it says it. So that means at 50.2 hertz the inverter will actually start reducing the power output. This is 100% in line what the Victron system does. So obviously this is some kind of standard this inverter is following here, and it should just work. That looks really good. And unfortunately we cannot test this yet because the battery is only sitting on 20%, and it will take another 3 months, 2 months or so at least, until we fully charge it again. So we cannot test this feature right now. But at least it says it here, 50.2 hertz, which is perfect. Apart from that, the app is really like... So, and here in the VRM we can already see we are charging actually faster than power is incoming from our PV solar here on the roof. Yeah, you can see that. So we are actually charging via AC, and the AC load is 0. Even if I turn on the light, there's no AC load anymore. Should I leave this on, or it doesn't matter? And you also have the animation here, power coming from the Multiplus going down. See, now the power is going backwards again. But then as soon as the pump turns off, if it turns off at all. Really? Who's using the pump right now? Here we go. Finally it has turned off now. So now we can see the animation going backwards from the Multiplus going down and adding to the DC charger, to the MPPTs, and then going into the battery. So 900 watt charging, but only 800 watt coming from the roof, and the rest is coming from our AC. And it also compensates for the 50 watts we had here showing on the AC load. And the circuit the microinverter is plugged in at the moment is actually the pool light circuit. So I unplugged my lights and plugged in the inverter. And there's a on-off switch in between as well, of course. And I can actually turn this off right now. And then we will see how much charging we still get in the battery and how much AC load we currently have. So I'll turn it off now. Yeah, there. Here it comes. Here it comes. See, these are the real numbers now. We've got our solar production here, supplying power to our AC and DC load. Okay, I'll turn on the pool light again. And it says here, flashing red, not producing power. See, this should usually go into a flashing slow blue, producing small power. Flashing fast blue, producing big power. That's what we want. We want to have it flashing blue fast. So it will now take around a minute until the inverter synchronizes onto the microgrid and then starts producing power. 0 watts. And now we can see we are charging the battery faster than we actually produce power here on the roof. That is pretty cool. Okay, let's plug in the second panel and see what's happening then. See, it says it here on the screen, updated 15 minutes ago. I mean, what the, 15 minutes? And it's called real time. Yeah, they call it real time. And what the? Ooh, there's a tiny amount of shading. Okay, let's quickly test this panel here with the solar panel tester, which I, of course, will link below. 193 watts. Why is this panel actually better than these ones? I thought these ones are the good ones. The BLD. And this is just the Rini Solar we picked up like months ago. And they deliver around 200 watts at full sun, but there are 250 watt panels actually. Anyway, let's plug it in. Negative, positive. Get this in here. Yes. Okay, it's plugged in. Are we still flashing red? We do. Why is that? It says no power, but it's clearly producing power. Okay, let's oh, now I can see 288 watts. I think from this angle you can guess what's on the display. Oh, there we go. Look at this. 290 watts, both panels together. And we can see this now clearly here on the VRM as well. we are charging with 970 watts, and the PV charger on the garage is only delivering 650 watts. That is cool. That opens up a lot of possibilities, because I've got enough space here, you know, to set up more panels and everything. I mean, look at this fence. It's all in pure sun now in the afternoon, and there's enough space on the roof as well. The problem is always how to get the power from here to our battery. And I've got AC on different locations here around the pool, so I can actually spread my panels. That could actually work. So, and now we can clearly see we are charging the battery with 860 watts, but producing only 700 watts here on the roof. We also compensate against all the AC load we have, like 50-60 watts at the moment, and still charging the battery. So power is coming in, and you actually, I haven't seen this before, the Multiplus also shows a charger light for bulk. We are in bulk state with the Multiplus. So the inverter is on, and we're also charging. So it is actually diverting now the power coming from this inverter into our battery, into the battery shelf. On a side note, as you have seen, I have not managed to make this inverter visible here on the VRM, but I think we need to install one of these meters in between and then connect this to the network and then have some Modbus magic working. So at the moment, this power doesn't show up anywhere. It just increases our state of charge, and that's pretty much it. It doesn't count as solar power as such. Problem with these meters is they don't have Wi-Fi or any other wireless connection. They need actually a physical cable connection, and there's no way I can get a cable out there to the pool. So I would need to install some kind of Wi-Fi access point there somewhere and then bridge it back to my network, and then we can read it here in the Victron VRM. If there's any other way to make this visible here in the VRM, please let me know. Thanks. Oh, now we're getting some shading already on these panels here. Well, it was good enough for the test setup, and I'm very pleased. This all works just fine, and also the inverter shows the 50.2 Hertz, so this should all work just fine. So now the question is where to put these panels then. They're on the flat side of the roof. That would be my preferred, because I can just bolt it down with the existing screws. We are using some aluminium rails and then have them on a tilt a bit to face north, or we can also set them up here on the tank as well, which would mean a bit more effort because this one is a bit domed. And I'm also keen to find out what happens if we overpanel this inverter. It may get destroyed, but it says here maximum DC short circuit 16 amps, and these ones have a short circuit of 8.83 when they were new. So, not anymore. Is that correct, Dave? What are you saying? What are you saying? Look at this fluffy pony. Come. Dave, come. It's more like a donkey. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We need only 8. So 2 panels per channel in parallel. So we need to build something for 8 panels on the roof. That'll be the biggest challenge. So, and of course here we can see the biggest advantage of having a micro inverter. The panel on the left produces 150 watts full sunlight, and the panel on the right only 56 watts because we've got a bit of shading there on the corner. And well, the panel on the left doesn't give a shit. You know, we're still having a maximum output of all the panels now because they are dealt with individually. And this is why some people always told me to get micro inverters on the garage, so the micro inverters then can optimally deal with the shading on the garage. But that's not possible in this situation because I've got far too many panels. It would be A, far too expensive, and B, how do I connect them to the battery? This may all work if you are grid connected and just exporting the energy, but here in an off-grid situation we need to stick to the 1.0 rule of Victron. And we cannot connect more than 5 kilowatt of solar panels to this 5 kVA inverter. Okay guys, I think so far this video from today, this was more a bit of a proof of a concept, proof if it was working. So more proof if it is working at all. And it looks like it is. So we can actually use these panels from up here and charge our battery all the way in the garage through our existing AC power. I don't need to wire anything, I don't need to do anything at all. It just plugs in. I think that's good. That means it is not good. Okay guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your amazing support. Thanks Ivan for sending over these beers from Perth. I know they're coming from here, but you know, you send them from over there, so it's much appreciated. I probably have to calibrate a fresh one now anyway, because we have to align all these solar panels here. And yes, I will link this inverter down in the video description as well as on my website, just in case you want to buy one and have a play yourself as well. They're coming from 600 watts all the way up to 2000 watts. I would not recommend buying the largest one. You have to match this to your panels. What kind of panels do you want to connect? And then have a look what inverter fits the best, suits the most. And this is then the size I would buy. Alright guys, until the next video, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye bye. Micro inverter. Who would have thought?